How are you? Greetings and salutations, everybody. I wanted to put together this quick little video about a new film that I just watched. And for those who are new, I like to make these little videos, usually about films, but sometimes about books, games, maybe a show, anything that I really enjoy and feel that I want to share and recommend. But of course, before we dive in, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon so you'll get a notification when I put up new content, which is usually once or twice a week, though sometimes I can work in a third or fourth here and there. Um, while you're here, be sure to check out my back catalog and go ahead and share this video and this channel around because it really does help the channel quite a bit, as does sticking around to the end. But for this film, we're going to be talking about Doctor Strange 2 Electric Boogaloo, which I believe is also known as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which just released in theaters this past weekend. And the synopsis for this film is as follows. Dr. Stephen Strange casts a forbidden spell that opens the doorway to the multiverse, including alternate versions of himself, whose threat to humanity is too great for the combined forces of Strange, Wong, and Wanda Maximoff. There's a lot more than that going on, though. This is, of course, the latest installment from Marvel, and one they decided to turn in another direction with. And, it's in leaning more towards having more of a horror, like more horror elements within this film. And it's also, they chose a great director for that, which is Sam Raimi, who I'm mainly a fan of, but not exclusively, just Evil Dead was just the main one for me, as is the Ash versus the Evil Dead, the Spider-Man trilogy that he did, as well as, Drag Me to Hell and Darkman, and there's, other works in there as well. Um, but yeah, this one definitely felt more along the lines of the three Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans in some ways. But, at any rate, yeah, throughout this film, so much of his previous work is reflected. You could definitely see that Marvel seemed to give him a lot of freedom to do what he wanted with this project because of his experience, I'm guessing, with superhero stuff with Spider-Man and Darkman, as well as his experience with making things a bit darker in the realm of horror. So, we get a lot of really good character introduction in this and reintroduction with laying out this plot while keeping things fast-paced somehow, keeping everything on track, no lulls in it at all. However, that's really only 80% of it, just the meat of that Marvel story and getting everybody introduced, because the other 20%, I would say, is a really strong Evil Dead sprinkling on top, I would say. Not really making it exclusively horror, but you could see that influence. You could see where they're taking it towards those darker roads and really getting deep with that. And it's just a great thing to see, over this backdrop of another Marvel film. And these horror aspects, they weren't like a random decision, as in, like a story that they tried to make it scarier somehow by slapping some horror elements on top. The story itself is a spooky, scary, strange story, no pun intended, almost Lovecraftian in some aspects, and but it all gels perfectly. It all works because it doesn't feel like anything is misplaced. And of course, we get some expected cameos and some unexpected ones, and other references to past, related Raimi works and the MCU in general. But everything about this film for me worked on all levels. I really feel that this production just knocked it out of the park, and they put together, this whole project in a great and unexpected way. But that's going to wrap up the non-spoiler part of this. But before we leave, the final things on the non-spoiler aspect would just say I'd recommend watching WandaVision on Disney Plus. This story leans heavily into basically being a sequel in a way to that series. And it's a well-done series on its own anyways and worth checking out, but I really feel that it's a necessity for even understanding what's happening in this film. Also watch What If on Disney Plus as well. Though not as important as WandaVision to have watched that, there are several references, of course, mainly from the Doctor Strange episode, or at least the one that centered on him, but there are a few others that kind of pop in here and there, and having seen What If kind of opens that up a bit. But yeah, that's it for the non-spoiler stuff. So if you don't want any spoilers, feel free to stop here and check out the movie and come back and watch the rest of this. So go. Okay, so I think they're gone. Now we can, kind of mention a few other items I wanted to talk about that I didn't want to spoil. Cameos. So I was pretty much convinced of Professor X. It definitely sounded like him in that first teaser trailer. But his chair being so similar to what I've seen in other media, such as in comics or in cartoons, is a really nice touch that they didn't just throw in the same exact representation of him from the previous X-Men films. It actually feels like a different version of him from the multiverse. Um, So that one was really cool to see, and as was the callback to What If, being able to see Captain Carter show up. I mean, after seeing her in this role, even though it was, just a short part of the film, I really would love to see a standalone film with Captain Carter. I'd be totally on board with seeing that. Also, seeing Maria Rambeau as Captain Marvel was a really nice touch, very unexpected. Same thing with Reed Richards. Um, I mean, I never saw either one of those coming. But the big one really is Black Bolt. That was very unexpected because Inhumans didn't really do that well. And I myself, I only watched 2 or 3 episodes of it and couldn't really get hooked. So the fact that they would want to bring him back in to just give him a little bit of extra screen time for that character was great, especially that it was the same actor. And it is a series that I was going to try to give it another chance on a rewatch, similar to ones that I enjoyed and just wanted to rewatch, such as Cloak and Dagger and Runaways. But and also let's not forget, of course, Mr. Bruce Campbell, which was expected, seeing that this is a Raimi film, and helped bring some of that nice Evil Dead 2 style comedy with him, beating himself up and stuff. But of course, the most important cameo in the entire film, the one that pulled everything from the Raimi verse together, the Oldsmobile 1973 Delta 88 Royale. That, of course, had to be worked in somehow. And it's crazy how many films he's worked that into, but, that's just a cool little touch to see that kind of floating off in the middle of the road. But anyways, enough on those cameos as far as the actual story. What I feel like the advertising didn't really get to me because in that first trailer, I felt like I got nothing about what the film is actually about except some sort of problem with the multiverse. And that's great as far as the trailer goes because it got me interested and it didn't spoil anything. But then I avoided anything else to do with the movie. So I had no idea of anything else. I know there were some other trailers that showed a bit more about Wanda and kind of opens it up that she's like the antagonist of this. Um, but so it was great because going into something not necessarily completely blind, as I've seen with some of the Hammer films that I've been watching. I'll put a link to some of those, or you can just check out my channel. Sometimes when you go in completely blind, your expectations are kind of not really correct for what you're getting into. So usually I'll just stick with that teaser trailer, and if I know I'm going to watch it, I just skip anything else about it because I'm just going to see it anyways. Why do I need to watch more and more, trailers for it and commercials that might end up spoiling something? But um, but yeah, for this one, originally I went into it thinking it'd be more of a direct sequel to Spider-Man with some Wanda stuff mixed in, or at least have some actions from that film be directly linked to what's happening in this film, which it wasn't, and it was surprising. But it was a great way to put this film together where I didn't go in there having guessed everything ahead of time. Um, so I ended up seeing this more as just like WandaVision Part 2, with Wanda being the bad guy, but, you know, hey, how could you not lean into that at all? I mean, I don't know what they could really do in the trailers to give more about that without completely giving that away. Onto the horror, so like I said, this is great. It's kind of like a WandaVision Part 2, but onto the horror aspects specifically, I mean, this is not the scariest thing or most violent or most bloody thing I've ever seen, but it's, well-written, frightening ideas that in contrast to the common themes that Marvel usually puts in their films, this stuff really popped. It really stuck out and had more of an impact than it would have in another film. So we're not used to seeing anything get that dark, get that just dangerous like that. But anyways, I just wanted to touch on a few of those things because I thought this one was great. It was a nice change, and I feel like it's kind of making me hopeful of, for the MCU as far as what they're doing in a post Thanos world in a way, because it's a lot to live up to when you have roughly 20 films that lead up to Endgame. How do you even continue after that? And I think that this one has really done a good job of kind of laying the groundwork for where this can go. Opens up a lot of possibilities and was really fun. And it was all wrapped up in like 2 hours and 10 minutes. It didn't really drag on and on. But yeah, anyways, that's it for this one. Thanks for sticking around to the end. And, this one's a bit longer than usual, different format for a review. And be sure to follow all that YouTube stuff that I mentioned at the beginning because it really does help out a lot. And I will see you in the next one.